Wanderer of the Wasteland, Chapter 23, Part 1. Daylight showed to Adam the cottonwood oasis as he had it pictured in memory, except for the palm-thatched hut. He was hard at camp duties when Jeannie came out. The sun was rising, silver and ruddy and gold, and it shone upon her, played around her glossy head as she knelt on the grass beside the running water. While she bathed there, splashing diamond drops of water in the sunshine, she seemed all brightness and youth. But in the merciless light of day, her face was too small, too thin, too pinched to have any comeliness. Her shining hair caught all the beauty of the morning. In one light it was auburn, and in another it was dark brown. And in any light it had glints and gleams of gold. It waved and curled rebelliously, a rich, thick, rippling mass falling to her shoulders. When presently she came over to Adam to greet him and offer to help, then he had his first look at her eyes by day. Gazing into them, Adam hardly saw the small, unattractive, starved face. Like her hair, her eyes shone dark brown, and the lighter gleams were amber. The expression was of a straightforward soul, unconscious of unutterable sadness, gazing out at incomprehensible life that should have been beautiful for her, but was not. "Good morning, Jeannie," said Adam cheerily. "Of course you can help me. There's heaps of work to do, and when you help me with that, I'll play with you." "Play?" she murmured dreamily. She had never had a playmate. Thus began the business of the day for Adam. When breakfast was over and done with, he set to work to improve that camp, and especially with an eye to the comfort of the invalid. Adam knew the wonderful curative qualities of desert air, if it was wholly trusted and lived in. On the shady side of the hut, he erected a wide porch with palm-thatched roof that cut off the glare of the sky. With his own canvases and others he found at the camp, he put up curtains that could be rolled up or let down as occasion required. Then he constructed 2 beds, one at each end of the porch, and instead of palm leaves, he used thick layers of fragrant sage and greasewood. Mrs. Linwood, with the aid of Jeannie, managed to get out to her new quarters. Her pleasure at the change showed in her wan glance. The porch was shady, cool, and fragrant. She could look right out upon the clean, brown, beautiful streams where they met, and at the campfire where Adam and Jeannie would be engaged. And at night, she could see it blaze and glow and burn down red. The low branching cottonwoods were full of hummingbirds and singing birds, and always the innumerable bees. The clean white sand, the mesquites bursting into green, the nodding flowers in the grassy nooks under the great iron-rusted stones, the rugged upheaved slope of mountain, and to the east an open vista between the trees where the desert stretched away, gray and speckled and monotonous, down to the dim mountains over which the sun would rise. These could not but be pleasant and helpful. Love of life could not be separated from such things. "Mrs. Linwood, sleeping outdoors is the most wonderful experience," said Adam earnestly. "You feel the night wind. The darkness folds around you. You look up through the leaves to the dark blue sky and shining stars. You smell the dry sand and the fresh water and the flowers and the spicy desert plants. Every breath you draw is new, untainted. Living outdoors by day and night is the secret of my strength." "Alas, we always feared the chill night air," sighed Mrs. Linwood. "Life teaches so many lessons. Too late." "It's never too late," returned Adam. Then he set himself to further tasks And soon that day was ended. Other days like it passed swiftly, and each one brought more hope of prolonging Mrs. Linwood's life. Adam feared she could not live, yet he worked and hoped for a miracle. Mrs. Linwood improved in some mysterious way that seemed of spirit rather than of flesh. As day after day went by and Adam talked with her, an hour here, an hour there, she manifestly grew stronger. But was it not only in mind? The sadness of her changed. The unhappiness of her vanished. The tragic cast and pallor of her face remained the same. But the spirit that shone from her eyes and trembled in her voice was one of love, gratitude, hope. Adam came at length to understand that the improvement was only a result of the inception of faith she had in him. With terrible tenacity, she had clung to life even while starving herself to give food to her child. And now that succor had come, her spirit in its exaltation triumphed over her body. Happiness was more powerful than the ravages of disease. But if that mastery of mind over body had continued, it would have been superhuman. The day came at last in which Mrs. Linwood sank back into the natural and inevitable state where the fatality of life ordered the imminence of death. When she was convulsed with the spasms of coughing, which grew worse every day, Adam felt that if he could pray to God, to the God she believed in, he would pray for her sufferings to be ended. He hated this misery of disease, this cruelty of nature. It was one of the things that operated against his acceptance of her God. Why was life so cruel? Was life only nature? Nature was indeed cruel, but if life was conflict, if life was an endless progress toward unattainable perfection, toward greater heights of mind and soul, then was life God and in eternal conflict with nature? How hopelessly and impotently he pondered these distressing questions. Pain he could endure himself, and he had divined that in enduring it he had enlarged his character. But to suffer as this poor woman was suffering, to be devoured by millions of infinitesimal and rapacious animals, feasting on blood and tissue, how insupportably horrible. What man could endure that? What man of huge frame and physical might, of intense and pulsing life? Only a man in whom intellect was supreme, who could look upon life resignedly as not the ultimate end, who knew not the delights of sensation, who had no absorbing passion for the gray old desert or the heaving sea or the windy heights and the long purple shadows, who never burned and beat with red blood running free. Only a martyr living for the future or a man steeped in religion could endure this blight of consumption. When Adam considered life in nature, he could understand this disease. It was merely a matter of animals fighting to survive. Let the fittest win. That was how nature worked toward higher and stronger life. But when he tried to consider the God this stricken woman worshipped, Adam could not reconcile himself to her agony. Why? The eternal why was flung at him. She was a good woman. She had lived a life of sacrifice. She had always been a Christian, yet she was not spared this horrible torture. Why? What hurt Adam more than anything else was the terror in Jeannie's mute lips and the anguish in her speaking eyes. One day during an hour when Miss Linwood rested somewhat easily, she called Adam to her. It happened to be while Jeannie was absent, listening to the bees or watching the flow of water. "Will you stay here, take care of Jeannie until her uncle comes back?" queried the woman with her low, panting breaths. I promised you, but I think you should not want me to keep her here too long, replied Adam earnestly. Suppose he does not come back in a year or two. Ah, I hadn't thought of that. What then is your idea? Well, I'd wait here a good long time, said Adam soberly. Then if Jeannie's uncle didn't come, I'd find a home for her. A home for Jeannie? Wansfeld, have you considered that would take money to travel to buy Jeannie what she ought to have? Yes, I suppose so. That part need not worry you. I have money. I'll look out for Jeannie. I'll find a home for her. You'd do all that? Whispered the woman. I promise you now, Miss Linwood, please don't distress yourself. It'll be all right. It is all right. I'm not in distress, she replied with something tremulous and new in her voice. Oh, thank God my faith never failed. Adam was not sure what she meant by this, but as revolved it in his mind, hearing again the strange ring of joy which had been in her voice, he began to feel that somehow he represented a fulfillment and a reward to her. Wansfeld, listen, she whispered with more force. I should have told you. Jeannie is not poor. No, she's rich. Her father found gold over in the mountains. He slaved at digging that killed him, but he found gold that's hidden inside the hut, under the floor where I used to lie. Bags of gold, Wansfeld. My child will be rich. Well, oh, but I'm glad, exclaimed Adam. Yes, it sustains me, but I've worried so my husband expected me to take Jeannie out of the desert. I've worried about that money. Jeannie's Uncle John Shaver is his name. He's a good man. He loved her. He used to drink, but I hope the desert cured him of that. I think he'll be a father to Jeannie. Does he know about the gold that will be Jeannie's? No, we never told him. My husband didn't trust John in money matters, Wansfeld. If you'll say you'll go with Jeannie when her uncle comes and invest the money until she's of age, I will have no other prayer except for her happiness. I will die in peace. I promise I'll do my best, declared Adam. The next time she spoke to him was that evening at dusk. Frogs were thrilling and trilling, and a belated mockingbird was singing low, full-throated and melodious. Yet these beautiful sounds only accentuated the solemn desert stillness. Wansfeld, you remember once we talked of God, she said very low. Yes, I remember, replied Adam. Are you just where you were then? About the same, I guess. Are you sure you understand yourself? Sure. Oh, no. I change every day. Wansfeld, what do you call the thing in you, the will to tarry here? The manhood that I trusted, the forgetfulness of self. What do you call this strength of yours that fulfilled my fate, that gave me God utterly, that enables me to die happy, that will be the salvation of my child? Manhood? Strength? Echoed Adam in troubled perplexity. I'm just sorry for you, for the little girl. Ah, yes, sorry, indeed you are, but you don't know yourself. Wansfeld, there was a presence beside my bed just a moment before I called you. Something neither light nor shadow in substance. Something neither life or death. It is gone now. But when I am dead, it will come to you. I will come to you like that, somewhere out in the solitude and loneliness of your desert, at night when it is dark and still, and the heavens look down. There you will face your soul. You'll see the divine in man. You'll marvel that the individual dies, but the race lives on. You'll have thundered at you from the silence, the vast lonely land. You love from the stars, the infinite beyond, that your soul is immortal, that this thing in you is God. When the voice ceased, so vibrant and full at the close, so more than physical, Adam bowed his head and plodded over the soft sand out to the open desert, where mustering shadows enclosed him. And he toiled to and fro in the silence, a man bent under the Atlantean doubt and agony and mystery of the world. End of chapter 23, part 1.